Salmon to me and my community is life. That's what it means to us, and it has for generations and generations. Salmon is integral.
All our main food source is salmon, with a little bit of deer, but in this area it was basically all salmon. There was salmon all year round. There was a niche late in the winter, which is a type of salmon. In the spring there was the small fry, which we ate, which is salmon. Then runs came up in the fall and in the summer. In summertime there's actually spring salmon in the lake that we fished. So basically all year there was a chance to get some salmon in some way. So salmon is our main source of food.
When we come fishing, we do all of our fish as a family. Yeah, so this year my son William, he's always fished with me, but this year he's brought in his wife down and his children. His wife is from Fountain, so she knows how to cut. And this year is the first year that my granddaughter has actually had a chance, my oldest granddaughter has had a chance to cut fish.
I started fishing when I was 6 years old, across the river at Hatlip, at 6 Mile. That's where we used to go down there with our mom and our uncle. I remember my mom teaching me and how proud she was of me when I was able to do what she has taught me. You know, and today I want to teach my kids or my nephews and nieces on how to cut it and put it away and preserve it. That's what I want to teach them.
It's in our blood. I was taught this, and I taught it to my son. Now my son is teaching it to his children. And as long as there's fish in this river, we'll be fishing. It's a way of life. My grandfather did it, my grandmother did it, my great-grandparents did it. You know, and the people before them, our ancestors, and it's in every part of me.
That's mainly, our culture is the salmon. We're the salmon people.
It's critical that we look after our fish. It's a part of our family, of our life's blood, of our history, of our people. It's not a resource, it's a way of life for us.
The Statlian people, we survived on the spring salmon, the Chinook salmon, and the sockeye were really, to go up north and feed the people up north, and it was probably the food source that was there for a lot of the wildlife, that needed it in the summer periods, because springs are coming in the spring, the Chinook.
A lot of my time growing up was spent at 6 Mile doing a lot of fishing with my grandparents, raised by my grandparents. My grandpa used to always say, that when the fish stop coming, we stop existing as a people, because it's part of our life.
The Bridge River it's a dammed river. At my age, I don't recall what it was like. I think the dam was built in the early 60s. I don't recall what it was like prior to the dam being built. But there's a huge dam with a huge reservoir upriver from us now. So what we have is a river that runs like a creek sometimes.
We did have a run in the Bridge River before the dams were built. We had a Chinook stock that grew up to 70, 80 pounds. They were white-fleshed, and bones are found within the archaeological sites. Like, we didn't have to go down to the Fraser to do our fishing. We fished on the Bridge River itself. This is a village, 82 pit houses here, used at different times. The oldest artifact we did find here was 1,800 years before present.
So hydro has caused a major problem in this valley, and on the other side in Carpenter Lake has actually cut off the salmon entirely up there. Anything you do to the land impacts the water, the flow of the water, and water is critical for salmon.
Historically, we've got hydro facilities, too many hydro facilities. From what I can see, we've got a canal in my community, we've got substations, we've got 3 dams. The dams wiped out the Chinook run.
Damming up the Bridge River created a big impact on our people. The inability to have that steady flow of spring salmon to hang on our racks. And we also look further and with the impacts to the Fraser and everything that's flowing into it.
I can't even tell you in words how afraid I was for my grandchildren to eat the fish, and how heartbreaking it is because they love it. I think for the big companies, they don't know or realize they've never been here, so they don't know. They don't see our elders eating the fish. They don't see our youth eating the fish. They don't see our babies eating the fish. They don't see families come down here day after day after day to provide for their family for the winter, you know. So they don't respect it. They do treat it like a toilet, you know. It's just crazy.
All of the communities along the river dump sewage into the river. At any time of the year, you can generally see a white foam floating down the middle of the river. This is pollution. So industry upstream of us dumps pollution into the, river. All of this is supposed to be being monitored by someone, but we don't have a lot of faith that they're actually monitoring it.
Salmon is integral to not only our livelihoods, but to Mother Nature and everything that she provides for us. It's food for the bears, it's food for the otters, the herons, the eagles, the beavers, everything that we have here. It's part of an ecosystem, and without it, we start losing a way of life. So there's all these things, hydro, BC Rail, logging, the road building, everything that is here is an impact to our salmon, and we need to start getting on top of that. And I think the generations we have today are becoming more familiar with the needs of the salmon, what they do, not only for us, but for the environment, and making sure that those salmon stocks are kept intact. We're seeing how everything is interconnected.
We reference it as the Statlium Agreement with BC Hydro. And I think Hydro likes to call it that because it's a reminder for them. Prior to this, like I said, there was 70 years of no opportunity or lost opportunity or missed opportunity. The employment numbers for our people with Hydro directly were very minimal. We have quite a few initiatives, we have quite a few projects where there's either joint ventureships or discussions about how we can take advantage of the opportunity. And that's something that had sorely been overlooked for the previous 65 plus years leading up to the agreements. Over the past few years, even leading up to the agreement, we've managed to get some changes to the structure here in terms of finding out what's happening to the salmon populations, getting better systems in place, taking out some of their antiquated counting devices and putting better science in place, like more proven science. We've managed to have a change in what happens when the salmon are migrating.
Right now we have BC Hydro here and they're listening. They're doing that. They're changing what's going on because we are here. We have the capacity to say, here's the science behind it. Here's what you need to do, and they're doing that. And it's affecting the salmon right now, and it's affecting them in a positive way.
BC Hydro as a company, not just because of the agreement, but clearly we're working to balance the need for reliable energy in the province to what's important to Statlium. That includes the fish and the impacts on their way of life, the land they live on, and the resources they rely on.
So employment figures have changed. We have a number of contracts that are in process and a number of others that are in discussions. And how we can take advantage of those has dramatically changed. Annually, BC Hydro will lay these on the table and we get a chance to mull over them. And that gives us a chance to go out and talk to potential partners later on. So it really has taken a change.
So there is 16 different monitoring projects. Right now what we're doing is the outmigration project. So basically we're counting the sockeye smolts and as well as coho and chinook smolts that are coming out into the river and then migrating out to sea. They can either pass through the dam, which is what we want them to do safely, or they can go down through the canal and then go into the turbines. And previously what was happening was they were going through that canal, they were getting mulched up in the turbines, and not a lot of them were making it to the river. So what we've done here is we've timed when those fish are kind of moving through and that ideal time for them to shut down the hydro plant. Our mission is to kind of time that migration period so that BC Hydro can change their operations, just to reduce smolt mortality. It's all about monitoring and then also about making a change so that those fish have a better chance of survival. It's about mitigating hydro impacts, essentially. In the past, they kind of just did whatever they wanted to. And, even during projects, while they're going on, we're giving them recommendations for how they can change their operation.
So in that post-settlement era, things are supposed to be different. Hydro's supposed to operate differently. They're supposed to think differently. There seems to be there's a huge gray area. So has Hydro done enough to inform their managers and VPs and whatnot? Have they informed the corporate structure that in Statlium there's businesses to be done differently? That's what the relations agreement calls upon them to do. So it doesn't quite seem that's happening at this point in time, and that's something that Hydro needs to step up to the table with and deal with, or step up to the plate with and deal with that, so that we do see that change on a broader level, and it's throughout Hydro.
We've asked Statlium representatives to help us bring to our community, our field offices, the staff that work more closely with them, a real sense of what the agreement really is and what difference it has made and where we intend to go.